We're recapping what the Giants have done after 1 week of free agency and what is next for Big Blue. All that and more coming up next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name's Patricia Traina, and happy Monday to everybody. It's Monday, March 21st, brand new week. We are entering the second phase of free agency, and still a lot to talk about regarding this Giants team in this offseason, and we are going to get to it, and I'm going to tell you in just a minute what we're going to cover on today's show. But first, today's show is brought to you in part by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props and odds and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, folks, so on today's show, we are going to take a look back at what the Giants have done so far in free agency, kind of put that into perspective as far as how it's setting things up for what they still need to do. Then we're going to talk about what the Giants do still need to do, because obviously they've only done some moves and there's plenty more that still need to be done. And then we'll finish up by discussing free agency and the draft and maybe the best way for the Giants to figure out how they're going to fill in some of these remaining holes going forward. So that is the agenda for today. Happy to have you with us, as always, here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for making us your first watch of the day. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to us on any of our audio platforms, thank you for making us your first listen of the day. It is appreciated. So let us get into the first part of our segment here, and we are going to do a recap of what the Giants have done in free agency, but not just reiterate what everybody knows. We're going to talk about how this is kind of setting the Giants up for the future, and I'm talking the short term as well as the long term future. So let's kick this off with a look at who's coming. Now, the Giants, by my count, as of the recording, 3:00 on a Sunday, which is when I'm recording this show, they have signed tight end Ricky Seals-Jones to a 1-year deal, quarterback Tyrod Taylor to a 2-year deal. They have signed offensive tackle Matt Gono to a 1-year deal. Wide receiver Robert Foster got a 1-year deal. Mark Golinski, offensive lineman, got a 2-year deal. John Feliciano, a 1-year deal. Now, what do you notice all of those contracts having in common? The answer: none of them are more than 2 years. So when we look at this roster and the moves that new general manager Joe Schoen has made so far, basically what we're seeing here is a lot of stopgap solutions, guys who aren't signed for the long term to big money. These are veteran guys who, basically this Giants team, before Joe Schoen started working on the roster, this team had a lot of holes to it. And the approach that Schoen seems to be taking right now is that, let's get a bunch of low-cost veterans, sign them to, short-term contracts, let them serve as stopgaps, and we're going to build over the long term via the draft, which is really the way you want the team to be built up. You don't want to, go all free agency and, have this big money contracts which choke the cap. That's the mistake the Giants made far too many times, and that was the result, of course, of their questionable drafting in the past. So let's take a closer look now. All right, so I want to focus first with the offensive lineman. Glowinski, as I mentioned, 2-year contract. Feliciano, who's going to play center, 1-year contract. Now, some people say, okay, well, you know what? That lessens the need for the Giants to get an offensive lineman. No, I disagree. I don't think it lessens the need at all. What it does lessen, or what it does rather, is that it gives the Giants some flexibility. If, for example, the offensive tackles that they might be looking to get in the first round are off the board, or if later on the interior linemen that they might be looking to get in round 2 and round 3 are not there. So now they have a stopgap. Feliciano, when I look at his contract, I say to myself, he's only going to be here for 1 year. The Giants are probably going to draft a center, a young center. They're going to develop him to take over for Feliciano next year. Now, the move to add Feliciano, I think, makes a lot of sense, and here's why. I suspect that the new Giants offense is going to have a very heavy Buffalo flavor to it. Feliciano was with Brian Daboll up in Buffalo, so he knows Daboll's system. And if a lot of that system comes down to the Giants, wouldn't you rather have a guy who has been in that system making the line calls and the protection calls and kind of serving as the on-field coach for the rest of the guys on the offensive line, especially when you're talking about, the possibility of having 2 young guys including a rookie? I think it makes far too much sense. So I fully endorse the move to bring down Feliciano, even though Feliciano was a guard for the Bills when he played in their offensive line. He learned the center position. That's the position he's penciled in right now to play. And, I feel good about him being the center here because, it's a new system, like I said, but it's one that he's probably going to have a little bit more familiarity with than, say, Daniel Jones, who obviously has never played in the system and who, I don't know if he's going to be making the line calls or how much he's going to be involved, but you want somebody who has played in it and understand it to make the line calls. So I like that move. All right, so Feliciano, like I said, I think is going to be a 1-year deal. I think the Giants will draft a center to replace him down the line, a guy who maybe doesn't need to start right away. Because interesting, Feliciano, if I'm not mistaken, has a per game roster bonus. So that to me would indicate that there's a good possibility that we could see somebody ease them out towards the end of the year, depending on their development. And that's another, tactic that I like that Joe Schoen has put into these contracts. All right, so Glowinski, let's talk about him. Interior offensive line, 2-year deal. The Giants are not going to be able to fix the offensive line, all 5 spots, in one offseason. They're going to be able to fix most of it. All right, so they've got Andrew Thomas at left tackle. Feliciano's going to be the center for this year. Glowinski's going to be one of the guards. All right, I think he's going to be the right guard if I'm not mistaken. And you want to have a veteran guard next to a potential rookie tackle, by the way, because I do think they're going to try and draft a rookie tackle to step in as a starter at that right tackle spot. And then you just have, the left guard spot, whether that be Shane Lemieux or maybe they pick up somebody else. I don't know. Maybe they get another rookie. But the point is now let's say they have a rookie at left guard and a rookie at tackle. So now the left guard rookie has an experienced guy next to him in Feliciano, who knows the system, and Andrew Thomas, who's now entering his 3rd year. Meanwhile, on the other side, you have a rookie, potentially you would have a rookie offensive tackle playing next to a veteran right guard in Glowinski. So you don't have any situation across the offensive line where you have 2 rookies next to each other, which is what I don't think they want at this point. They need for that offense to get off to a fast start. And I don't think they can if they throw 2 rookies in there from day one. They need to have that mix. Now, the other thing I will say about the offensive line that I like, the Giants are doing the reverse of what they did or what they tried to do last year. Last year, they were all in on going with youth across the board, which I understood the philosophy behind it. I didn't necessarily agree with it. I felt that there should have been more experience along that offensive line. You had Nick Gates, even though he had played, for a number of years, he was playing center for the first time. Will Hernandez was flipping from the left guard spot to the right guard spot. Matt Parrott was starting his 2nd season. Andrew Thomas was starting his 2nd year. I mean, there was a lot of uncertainty, and it was a big gamble. So what the Giants are doing this year, which again makes more sense to me, mixing it up. So you're going to have, it looks like you're going to have 3 to 4/5 at least 3/5, I should say, experience and 2/5 youth. That to me is a good mix. And then you've got guys in the pipeline, because remember, I keep saying that the Giants didn't have a strong pipeline that they can develop into potential starters down the line. So overall, based on what I've seen so far regarding the offensive line, I like the approach that Joe Schoen is taking. I think it makes a lot of sense. And already, I'm very optimistic that this unit is going to be better than it was last year. All right, now let's talk about the tight end position. Now, so far, the Giants have only added one tight end, that being Ricky Seals-Jones. And the Giants basically don't have any of their tight ends from last year coming back. Evan Ingram went to the Jaguars on a one-year deal. Caden Smith and Kyle Rudolph were cut. Now, I would like to see the Giants add another tight end in the draft. I do think they will. If I had to take a guess, I'm thinking maybe late day 2, early day 3 for a tight end. Ricky Seals-Jones, a lot of people say, oh, is he going to be the tight end number 1? I don't know that he's going to be. Skill-wise, he's never been a tight end number 1. But the good news is the Giants' offense, if it does have that heavy buffalo flavor that I spoke of, I don't think they need to rely on the tight end as much. I think the receivers are going to be relied on a heck of a lot more. So I don't think the Giants, I would be surprised if the Giants keep a lot of tight ends. They'll probably keep 3. I could see them keeping 3 because it doesn't look like they're going to keep a fullback. They told Eli Penny that they're not going to bring him back. They're not going to bring back Cullen Gillespie. So it sounds like they want to go with a tight end who's more of an H-back type. And I think in terms of the draft, that's probably what we want to keep an eye on, is who fits that role. Because I think Ricky Seals-Jones is going to be the inline blocker primarily. And then the draft prospect, whoever that might be at the end of day 2, beginning of day 3, I think that guy is going to be, the H-back, the move guy, the pass catcher. All right. So I don't have a name for you just yet. I did a mock draft that's on Giants Country, or it will be on Giants Country around 8 o'clock Monday morning. I did not take a tight end in the first 3 rounds of the mock draft. You'll see who I took if you want to check that out over on Giants Country. That article should be up by 8 o'clock. So tight end is the other position they really have to add to. Now, there are other positions they obviously need to add to. What are they? I'm going to tell you coming up. But first, let me tell you about Built Bar. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar without the calories and without the sugar. Most Built Bars contain about 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein, and they taste great. Built Bars are available in 9 amazing flavors, plus a limited time rotation of select flavors, which changes up every so many weeks. And they are available in nut and nut-free varieties. Head on over to BuiltBar.com today and put your customized box together. Use our special promo code LOCKED15. You will save 15% off your first order. Again, that promo code is LOCKED15, LOCKED15, for 15% off your custom order at BuiltBar.com. All right, what do the Giants still need to do? What I would like to see them do, number 1, is I'd like to see them sign at least one free agent for their defense. So thus far, the defense has not gotten any love. Now, I get it. The Giants don't have a lot of money. Totally understand that. But you wonder, all right, or actually I wonder, could the Giants maybe afford to bring back, say, for example, Jabril Peppers on a 1-year prove-it deal? I mean, he's coming off of an injury. He appears to fit what Wink Martindale's system looks like it's going to be. I would take that gamble. Wouldn't you? I mean, especially after the Giants let go of Logan Ryan and their only experienced safeties are Xavier McKinney and Julian Love. I definitely would take that option or that gamble. The other guy, now I have gone back and forth on this, and the more I think about it, the more I think there might be a possibility here. I would give a prove-it deal to Lorenzo Carter. Now, Lorenzo Carter, coming off of last year, really, really looked good in the last 4 games or so of the season. It was like a switch went on, and he was healthy and just kind of lit it up. Now, thus far on the open market, unless it just hasn't been reported, Carter hasn't drawn a lot of attention for a pass rusher, which I don't know if that's surprising, shocking. I don't find it surprising considering that the guy was coming off of an Achilles injury from the year before. Then he had the sprained ankle mid-year. And thus far, we've seen flashes of what Lorenzo Carter can be. You know, a lot of people talk about, oh, the Giants need to add a pass rusher. You know, ideally a Batman pass rusher, which is a guy that you double team for and, you know, who's going to probably strike a little bit more fear in the hearts of offensive coordinators than, say, for example, your Robin pass rushers. I don't know that Lorenzo Carter is a Batman. I think he has shown flashes of being able to be that, but I haven't seen enough. I don't know if I could say at this point Azeez Ojulari, who's under contract, is a Batman. I don't think I can say Quincy Roche, who the Giants picked off waivers last year, is a Batman. So what I'm getting at is potentially right now the Giants have a bunch of Robins and no Batmans in their pass rushing arsenal. That's why I would like to see the Giants bring Lorenzo Carter back, maybe on a 1-year prove-it deal, kind of similar to what they gave Marcus Golden a few years ago, where they gave him, it was a 1-year deal, and I think if he hit double-digit sacks, which he did that year, he earned a roster bonus or a performance bonus. I'd like to see that for Lorenzo Carter, because Carter, like I said, we've seen flashes of what he could do, but not enough to where we could say, oh, you know what, let's break open the bank for him. Now, like with Jabril Peppers, who I also think, you know, if I were the Giants, I would maybe look to see if I can get him on a prove-it deal. I do think the Giants will look to draft an edge rusher. I do think they will look to draft a safety. But the approach that Joe Schoen seems to be taking right now is let's roll with the veterans, you know, for a stopgap and see what we've got with them, and then get some of these younger guys, you know, up and ready to go. So to me, you know, Jabril Peppers and Lorenzo Carter, 2 young veterans, they have not hit their ceiling yet. I would give them a shot. I really would. If the Giants can somehow scrape together the money to get those 2 guys, or at least one of those 2 guys under contract, I don't see the harm in doing it. I mean, you know, that doesn't mean you don't take somebody in the draft if you have the opportunity, but just see what you can do, because here's the thing. You got to remember, the Giants, I think, are setting themselves up to where next year they're going to have a better cap situation, which right now it's fluid. It's too soon to say exactly what they're going to have, but it is going to be better than this year. Depending on what they do in the draft, you know, if they stay with both their first round picks or if they trade down, they may end up picking up more draft capital. They'll certainly pick up more draft capital in the comp department, at least as of after the first week of free agency. So there will be opportunities and ammunition if they want to move around. And I just think, you know, Carter and Peppers can be fits for what Wink Martindale wants to do. And that's why I'd like to see them each get at least, you know, a 1-year prove-it deal with a lot of incentives that they should be able to meet if they are healthy. So that's probably the number one thing I want to see the Giants do remaining in free agency as we go into the second and third wave of free agency. What else do I want to see them do? Cornerback, I think they're going to need another cornerback. You know, James Bradbury, that situation is not yet resolved. Now, someone asked me, is it possible that by cutting Logan Ryan that the Giants are maybe trying to save up money to do something with James Bradbury? I don't think that's the case, folks. I really don't. James Bradbury is in a situation where if the Giants go to him and say, hey, James, look, you got to take a pay cut, Bradbury is still a good enough cornerback, and the money he's making, his base salary, isn't really out of whack for a top NFL cornerback. Now, I'm not saying that he is the top cornerback, but I certainly would not put him at the bottom of the pile. So Bradbury, I don't know if it's just the market, it just hasn't developed because teams think that the Giants are desperate to unload him and they're trying to lowball them, or they want to wait until the market settles down. But with Bradbury, I think if anything's going to happen there, it's going to happen during the draft. You're going to see, once the top cornerbacks go off the board, that's when maybe the Giants will have a little bit more leverage to move James Bradbury if they want to. So that said, if Bradbury is not long for this team, which I don't think he is, even if he's on the team this year, he's got a voidable year in his contract next year, and I think they move on from him. You got to get a cornerback, no question about it. I would like to see the Giants also get another linebacker, inside linebacker, because, Blake Martinez should be okay, but usually when a player's coming back from the first year from a ACL, you never know what you're going to get with him. And, as far as the other linebacker goes, if you could somehow combine Jalen Smith and Tate Crowder into one person, you'd have the ideal linebacker. But I just don't know if the Giants put such a high value on inside linebackers in this defense. I'm guessing nose tackle is definitely going to be a priority, and that's going to be something they address in the draft, especially after losing Austin Johnson. And then the back end of the defense is going to be a top priority. So that's where I think the Giants are going to put their resources, if I had to take a guess right now. Now let's come back to the offensive side of the ball, if we could here. I mentioned tight end. Obviously, the Giants got to add their running back is another position the Giants have to add to. The Giants, they're going to go in with Saquon Barkley. It looks like I don't think Saquon's going to get traded, although, again, I could still make a case to trade him if he's not in the long-term plans, which he may or may not be. Who knows? But get a young running back who can make plays in space, who can obviously, rush the ball, has good vision, explosiveness, all that good stuff, but who also can pass protect. And that's why, if you've been following the rumors, James Cook of Georgia, who's Dalvin Cook's younger brother, has been really generating a lot of buzz and having his name linked with the Giants. It's been reported that there is heavy interest by the Giants in James Cook. And spoiler alert, yes, he did come up in my mock draft. I won't tell you where, but I can tell you it's not day one. I did not take a running back in day one. But I could see, the Giants taking a running back. Because right now, they have Antonio Williams, who I think was on the practice squad last year with Buffalo. They're going to probably want somebody who can step up. And, I don't know that Gary Brightwell is that guy. I think Gary Brightwell is more of a special teams guy. So that's a position they need to address. The only other position I would say at this point, and this is, I guess, iffy, but I would not be surprised if the Giants address this spot, is receiver. The Giants, you have Kenny Golladay. He's not going anywhere. They worked out a new deal with Sterling Shepard to keep him at a lower cap rate. And we'll see when he's going to be ready to play, by the way. He suffered that late season injury. I don't know if he's going to be ready to start the season. Darius Slayton, he's on his rookie deal. It's not ultra expensive, but I could see them moving on from him. I think Kadarius Toney should be okay. He should be healthy and good to go. I'd like to see the Giants add another receiver. And I know they added, Robert Foster during the first wave of free agency, but that was more of a reserve futures contract. So I could see the Giants adding another receiver. Now, I've got to go back and I've got to look at that a little bit more carefully, because receivers come, as you guys know, in all different, shapes, sizes, and flavors, if you will. So I'd have to see, are they going to be better off with more of a slot guy, an outside guy, a guy who could do both, a guy who, excels against zone coverage, all that stuff I've got to take a look at. But I would not be surprised if the Giants add receivers. So those are the needs as I see it. Now, if I had to prioritize the needs for the Giants, I would say cornerback, I would say pass rusher, tight end would probably be up there. I would put offensive line depth before tight end. Because look, that cupboard is just bare. So I would definitely do that. Obviously running back, and maybe receivers. So that would be my list of priorities for the Giants moving forward. All right, coming up, some final thoughts as we enter the second tier of free agency. But first, it's that time of year again as college basketball's tournament is finally here. And oh, what an exciting tournament it's been. I don't know about you, but my brackets have just gone poof up in smoke. But hopefully your brackets are still doing well, if you did brackets, that is. But anyway, it's time to get all the latest news, odds, and information. And what better place to get it than from BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your best spot for every sport that you might follow, including your Vegas games, your favorite Vegas games. Check them out today, BetOnline.net, and see what they have as far as trends, contest information, all the information that they might have to help you make wise decisions as you go through your wagers. BetOnline.net, where the game starts. All right, Giant fans, you've got Patricia Traina here on the Locked On Giants podcast. It is a Monday edition. We're going over what the Giants did in free agency so far. We're going to look ahead to what they might do. And I have some final thoughts that I want to get to before I call it a show. But first, just a reminder for the rest of the week, Twitter Tuesday is coming up. So make sure you get your questions into me. If you get them in by say let's say about 7 o'clock on Monday, I should be able to incorporate them in the show. So you can tweet them to me at Patricia_Traina. Make sure you tag them Ask P Train. You can email them to me at lockedongiantspodcast@gmail.com. You can text them, and I just have to look up the number. I can never remember the number, but you can text your questions to me at 732-924-8580. And that information, by the way, is in the show notes. Get your questions to me by 7 o'clock on Monday, and I should be able to incorporate them in the show. And then the rest of the week, I am planning to do an interview with a legacy Giant, and I will tell you who that person is once I get the interview secured, just in case something goes wrong. And then we'll just keep on bringing you all the latest news, notes, and analysis like we always do here at the Locked On Giants podcast. So thank you again, everybody, for making us your first listen of the day, or if watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. And if you haven't already done so, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube and that little bell and like our channel. We would really appreciate it. All right, so some final thoughts here on what the Giants have done in free agency so far. Overall, I wrote this article over on Giants Country, but overall, the thing with the Giants is it was important for them to look in the mirror and know what they were. Not sit there and say, well, I could be this, that, and the other thing. And by that, I mean, one of the mistakes of the last regime, and this kind of stands out at me because Joe Schoen has avoided doing this, but in 2018, the Giants were under the impression that they could rebuild and compete. And that was never going to happen. That's like, having a house that is undergoing major reconstruction or renovations, and it is not deemed safe to live in. So the Giants, I think what Joe Schoen and Brian Dable and Brandon Brown, the assistant general manager, have done is they took a deep, hard look in the mirror and said, look, we're cap strapped right now. We have a lot of holes. We only have 9 picks. We can only do so much to fix the roster this year. We've got a new coaching staff. Everything needs to take root. So we've got to basically rip up all the sod from the previous regimes and start fresh. So realistically speaking, this team, while I do believe the team can be better, is not going to be necessarily a playoff contender. If they make the playoffs, great. That's gravy on the turkey. I'm not counting on it, though. I think the goal for the Giants and for Joe Schoen is that, look, let's add new pieces, lay down a new foundation, and then next year when we have a better cap situation, we have more directions where we can go as far as, the first round pick and so on and so forth, then we can continue to add and then maybe make that push for playoffs. Now, do I think the Giants will be better this year? Will they win more games? I do. I think they will win more than 4 games. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're going to be over 500 because I don't know that yet. We haven't seen the entire roster yet. And obviously, as we saw, injuries can factor into the equation. But I'm optimistic that it's going to be better. I do think, and I have my fingers crossed on this, that this coming season will be the last one that we won't have playoffs for this Giants team. I think that streak of non-playoff games is coming to an end. But again, I chalk this all up to the Giants and Joe Schoen recognizing what this team is and what this team isn't. And that was so important in the rebuild because you just can't, that's like, saying I'm going to lose, and I'm saying in general, that's like saying, oh, I want to lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks, for my high school reunion, which, P.S. I don't want to lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks, and I don't have a high school reunion coming up. Just using that as an example. But what I'm getting at is the goals need to be realistic. They need to be attainable. They need to be realistic. And I think what Joe Schoen is doing has them realistic. I think that they're going to use these 9 picks in the draft. Now, I don't know if they're going to pick all 9 picks. I don't know if they're going to use them. They might trade, to go up in the first round, get back into the first round at the bottom of it. They might move around the board. I don't have a feel for that yet because I don't know how Joe Schoen is thinking. I might have a better idea after he does his draft presser, his draft preview presser, which usually takes place the week before the draft. But I do think the Giants have a direction. So far, what they have done, I like. I'm optimistic. Compared to last year when they started spending like crazy, I had my reservations because I thought that if things didn't work out, the cap would be a mess, which unfortunately it turned out to be. So, Giant fans, I don't know how you're feeling about this team and the direction they're headed. I know right now everything's in a honeymoon stage because there haven't been any games played, but I think brighter skies are ahead. I think the draft is going to be key for this team in rebuilding moving forward. And like I said, we've seen a lot of contracts, or the contracts that the Giants have given out are not choking up the cap. They are not long-term deals. All right. So that allows them to move on and replace these veterans with younger guys that are going to become the foundation. And I like that because that's how it should be. That's how successful teams build rosters. So we will find out whether or not it pays off. I mean, going to be interesting for sure. So, all right, Giant fans, that is going to do it for us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. Appreciate you tuning in. And again, thank you for making us your first listen of the day, or if watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day. Don't forget, Twitter Tuesday tomorrow. Get those questions in. I look forward to hearing from you. And until then, have a great one, everybody.